Hi, I am here again to talk about organizing, but today we're going to talk about organizing our freezer. Now, there are a lot of rules that will fit all freezers no matter what type of freezer that you have, but so we'll cover some of that, the general rules that fit every freezer, and then we'll try to go and talk about all the types of freezers that you might have, and hopefully there's some really good tips in there for your type of freezer. I happen to have the side-by-side refrigerator freezer with the ice maker, so that's probably what I'm gonna give you a lot of my tips and what I do for my freezers. And then I have a freezer in my garage that we're going to talk about. So first, I do want to let you know that I did get some ideas from an article, www.thekitchen.com, how to organize any freezer, -2306411, but that'll be in my blog post if you want to see that. But always put, when it comes to your freezer, always put the new stuff in front, and the newer stuff in the back, and push the stuff that was already in there in back. And you should really have a system for your freezer so that you will always know what's in it. A lot of times growing up, my mom knew what was in the freezer, but we never knew exactly where it was, so you have to search around. In my freezer, I know where everything is, but I also have a meal plan, and we'll talk about that later. But always put stuff new towards the back and pull the older stuff, the stuff that needs to be eaten first, to the front. Now, everything that has been taken out of the original packaging or homemade should be labeled and dated. Freezers in the family freeze in family portions that fit your family's needs. Now I'm an empty nester, so when I buy my groceries, I go ahead and freeze the raw stuff according to how much my husband and I eat. Before, when the kids were with us, I would divide it out by 4. I knew that I would eat 2 chicken thighs, 1 for supper and 1 for lunch the next day. My family didn't really look in the refrigerator and think about taking a lunch on a daily basis, so I didn't make extra for that. So that's how you want to think about who takes a lunch the next day. Do you need to make extra for that? And freeze it in portions. Now, it is easier to do right when you get home from the grocery store. Just go ahead and get the Ziploc bags and divide it out. It really doesn't take that long. And then since I only cook breakfast on Saturday and Sunday mornings, I go ahead and take care of that on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I may do some of it Saturday when I cook breakfast, and then do the other half on Sunday, just so that nothing is all done at once, and it's not overwhelming, and you can just do a little bit at a time. But when you freeze in family portions that fit your family, then when you have company, you can just take out extra, because you kind of know how much is in each Ziploc bag. So when company, you can just add another family portion or 2 to fit the situation. As much as possible, freeze things flat. Try to flatten out your food items and let them freeze flat, and then you can stack them, stand them up, and have them in file order, um, in bins. Now, I don't do that strict, but that is very helpful if you freeze your own soups and stews and stuff like that. I have glass containers for the stuff that is homemade that I freeze. It just depends on, on you and your family. But that will maximize space. Use bins to create drawers. Use them to group like with like, and then you can just pull one out to see what's in there rather than having to dig around. We already talked about that a little bit, but label the bins so you and everyone will know what is in it. Anything that comes in a box, like waffles, popsicles, chicken nuggets. You can also put in gallon size baggies to save room, just to get rid of the box. If you think you need the instructions, you can cut that out and put that inside the box or tape it on the outside. I always put it on the inside because it's usually already, the food's already frozen, so it's not like it's going to get wet until you defrost it. And once you pull it out, you can pull out the instructions and then defrost it as needed. But most of the boxed foods that come frozen will go in frozen, and you will actually cook it frozen. Not all of it is defrosted before you cook. So that's how that can be taken care of. Now, food, air circulation is needed around, if you have air circulation around frozen foods, that is what leads to freezer burn. So that's why we say freeze it flat and squeeze out as much air as possible. So that's your best bet, is to find a container as close to the size of what you want to freeze as possible, or squeeze out as much air as possible. You're using plastic bags. Make sure they're the freezer bags for freshness. And or if you're using foil, double wrap it. If I were to use foil, just because I'm paranoid, I would probably wrap it in foil and still stick it in a Ziploc bag. So I don't know. I just don't trust the freshness of aluminum foil for some reason. Um, Now, doing these things mean you maximize freezer space and keep air out. And we already talked about keeping an inventory. Now, if you have a refrigerator where the freezer is on the top, what is recommended, and I say what's recommended because that's not the freezer that I have, so I don't have the experience for that. And some have a section on the door and some don't. But if you are going to freeze some items on the door, make sure it's nuts, flour, bread, butter, ice packs, herbs. Make sure those are the little things are what you want to freeze in the little door pockets. And then on the top is ice cube trays. If you don't have an ice maker, fruits, veggies, breads, waffles, baked goods, popsicles, and or ice cream would be on the top. And on the bottom of the freezer is where you will stack your meats, fish, soups, sauces, chili, prepared meals, leftovers. Put those over on the side, and then stack, frozen. If you buy frozen pizzas and stuff like that, then you can put that on top of the leftovers that are on the side. I organize it in order of my meal planning. So if you do any type of meal planning, you might want to think about that as you're putting items in your freezer. Let's see. And if you don't have a shelf in there, you might want to go to Walmart or Dollar Tree and get one of those little rubber or plastic covered metal shelves. Now, eventually it might get nicked and then moisture will cause a little bit of rust, but it's only $1. So when that happens, if you just see the remote amount of rust on that shelf, just throw it out and get another one. But they are coated in plastic, so they should last a little while. Or maybe you can find a plastic shelf. I'm not sure. I have not looked for plastic shelves for a freezer. But you could also use a cookie sheet on top of the bottom layer and then stack the top layer. If you don't have, you just have to pull out the cookie sheet whenever you're trying to get to the things at the bottom. But all right, now the refrigerators that have freezers at the bottom, you know, those drawers that come out, bottom drawer kitchen freezers, you might want to put in the upper drawer. There's usually a little rack on the top. You might, and they're usually very small. That's what you would put. Again, the smaller items, the ice packs, the butter, the nuts, the open packages, clip, you know, the stuff that you've used part of and clipped clothes, you know, those items there. You might want to, all those smaller items will be there. And then, under that, you would create the categories. You may work from the left to the right. Put ice cream goes on the left, then fruits and vegetables, and then bread and other baked goods, your soup, sauces, your homemade meals, the middle, and then the meat and fish on the at the end on the right. I organize, again, like I said, I would organize it according to your meal planning. That way you always know where everything is, which is what we're going to cover a little bit in just a minute. Now, like I said, I've got the side-by-side refrigerator, and the reason I organize it the way I organize it is because I do have the other freezer in the garage. If you don't have an extra freezer, then you may have to organize it like you've done, like we've talked about in the other freezers, by categories that way. But the way I have mine, I organize this freezer, the quick, easy cook stuff. I have these bins from Dollar Tree. I have one on each shelf depending on the size. All of them are the same size except for the one right, the second shelf. That one is narrower, and so I keep a plastic bin. That's where I keep popsicles and the ice cream. In the middle, it's just the size of shelf that will fit a thing of ice cream. So that's where I put the frozen, if we have any frozen fruit that we're using at the moment, ice cream and popsicles. And that's where I keep. But the top shelf is where I keep the quick stuff. Like if you want a little mini frozen pizza, and I say minis because it's just my husband and I now. So all of those little frozen entrees that my husband can take out and just cook if he's the only one home. Those quick cook meals, stick it in the air fryer, the oven, and he can have lunch. Those are the things I keep in the basket on the top. Then like I said, the ice cream. Then the basket, the third basket or third shelf, we love breakfast. Now we only eat hot breakfast on Saturday and Sunday mornings, but those are the items I keep in that basket. I keep my sausage patties, my bacon, and frozen biscuits if we eat frozen biscuits, because my husband's diabetic, so we're trying not to eat the biscuits. So that's what we keep there, our breakfast items. And then at the very bottom is where I keep only the veggies that I'm gonna cook for supper that week, and the chopped onions and the seasoning type frozen vegetables I keep on the very bottom. And then in the door, the top is ice packs. I have some, and then the next is some extra popsicles that didn't fit, some Parmesan, frozen Parmesan cheese. I do buy the shredded Parmesan cheese and keep them in individual baggies. That way I only use what I need, and it never gets moldy. And we will talk about refrigerator organization on another episode here. But let's see, what else do I keep on the door? Some, oh, and some Arm& Hammer baking soda, and those little things. I don't really keep a lot of the things that I mentioned above in there, just because those are just not items that I use that often, so I don't really have those at all. I'll usually buy baked goods and stuff as I bake, because I don't bake a lot. So again, some of this is going to be very helpful, but some of this is going to change depending on you and your family and what you eat. So let's see, upright freezer. Okay, now my upright freezer in my garage. This one, I do have it very well organized by meal plan. The very top shelf, I have chicken. And because my husband likes white meat and I like dark meat, it's going to have a thigh and two chicken tenders. And then I just change out the seasoning and cook the chicken however the recipe calls for chicken. So that I keep that whole shelf stocked with baggies of chicken, just enough for my husband and I. Let me see if I forgot anything. Rectangle baskets. Oh, yes. I have these shallow rectangle baskets. Those that can see me, they're about 3 to 4 inches deep, and they're aerated, so you can see right through them. And I have those on shelves. Those are what I use as my little drawers, and all the food is filed on those rectangular containers on each shelf. So I have 2 of them on the top shelf with just regular chicken, and then I organize it in order. On Monday, since I have chicken, my top shelf is chicken. On Tuesdays, I have Taco Tuesday and Wing Wednesday, so that's the second shelf, ground beef and wings, because sometimes we'll use the leftover chicken from Monday for our tacos or chalupas. And then Thursdays is takeout, so I don't have that on a shelf. Fridays are either fish or any type of frozen entree I can just stick in the oven. It can be chicken pot pies, any frozen entree from the grocery store. And then I have, yeah, and seafood and the quick frozen meals again that you can just pull out. And then on the bottom, very bottom, there's a wire rack. That's where all the overflow goes, the extra breakfast items, meat that my husband may be barbecuing, and stuff like that. On the door, on the door, I have the butters, the shredded cheeses, soups, any sauces, and then I used to have a small deep freezer. So the way I organize that, instead of the little rectangular baskets that I use as drawers, now in the small deep freezer, I used little plastic totes that had handles, and I would organize it in 2 or 3 layers. I would have a basket of chicken, vegetables, fruits, and ground beef on the bottom, and seafood, let's see, how did I do that? Plastic tote type bins with handles, 2 per category to stack on top of each other. The bottom would be the chicken, 1 of each item. And then in the middle, I would have it exactly the same. That way there was a basket of chicken, ground beef, veggies, veggies and fruit, stuff like that. And then the third layer, which is the top, would be the cheeses, tortillas, breads, any of those items that you might need more regular uh, on a regular basis. Now I have watched a lot of videos, YouTube videos, and read a lot of articles on the really large rectangular deep freezers. And that one is a little more difficult because just like the small one, you have things on the bottom that you can't always get to. But because it is bigger, at least you can stack bigger bins on top of each other, so you can do it the same as the small. This will take some really good measuring so that you can maximize the space with the right size bins for easy stacking and lifting. Again, on the bottom, I would just put a bin of chicken, veggies, fruits, beef, seafood, something homemade, and then the middle layer, stack it exactly the same. And then the very top, again, sometimes they have a little metal basket. Mine didn't, but some do. And that's where you put the miscellaneous items and the dairy items and breads and stuff. Well, that was a lot of information. So I really hope you found something interesting. Those that well, since this is a podcast that you can record or a video that is recorded, you can rewind it if I went a little fast, and see if there's anything helpful that you forgot, that you can re-listen to. All right. I think the next topic we may tackle the refrigerator, organizing the refrigerator. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. And I will touch base with you again on the next podcast and the next YouTube video. But let me know what you want, what topics that you want. We can get detailed, we can be specific, we can tackle any type of organizing project that you want me to tackle, and we can talk about that on the videos and podcasts. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. Have a good night and a good day tomorrow.